Hello everyone, and thanks for joining the Ingram Micro Cloud Proofpoint All-Stars webinar today. We'll start in just a moment while everyone can log on. All right, I think we might get started. Thank you again, everyone, for joining the Ingram Micro Cloud and Proofpoint All-Stars webinar. Today, this webinar is about insider threat management. This is the fourth webinar as part of our series under the Ingram Micro Proofpoint All-Stars program. So thank you again, everyone, for joining today. My name is Daniel Vickers. I'm from Ingram Micro. So if we go on to the next slide, please. As I mentioned, this is the fourth session as part of our All-Stars program. For anyone that's new to our All-Stars program, it's our enablement and education and enablement, as well as a rewards program centered all around Proofpoint. As I mentioned, this is the fourth one. The previous three were done earlier in the year. The first one was on people-centric starting point. Second one was all around Proofpoint essentials, and the third one was a security awareness training. If everyone has any queries or wants to actually view any of those that didn't get to attend the previous ones, please let us know, and we can definitely send out some information on those. As I mentioned, the Proofpoint All-Stars program there's a couple of components to it. Anyone that's as part of our Pro League will get 15,000 points as part of this session, and then we're also going to be doing a Kahoot quiz towards the end of this session. So please, if anyone hasn't used Kahoot before, we will be sending out we'll be letting you know a link to join, but you can also download the app as well. As part of the All-Stars program, we do have a deal registration incentive as well. So definitely, if you're not familiar with that, please reach out to us as well. If we can go to the next slide. As I mentioned, I'm Daniel Vickers. I'm the Cloud Security Relationship Manager here at Ingram Micro. And today we're lucky enough to have both Marash and Matt from Proofpoint to present today. So enough from me. Marash, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. And thank you for joining in and welcome. As Dan mentioned, this is our fourth and last webinar for the year. With part of the All-Stars program with Ingram Micro. So I'm really privileged to be here and having a chat with you guys. So today's session is all about insider threat management, as Dan mentioned earlier on. So Proofpoint bought Observe IT as an organization back in 2019. So Observe IT was a very well-known or market leader in insider threat management then, and Proofpoint did see a fairly big requirement for a product covering insider threat at that point when they purchased the company. And this was mainly due to organizations seeing more and more of their employees working remotely and accessing corporate data. So as you know, it's a no-brainer here that since 2019, the world's changed upside down, and I think all of us are working from home at the moment. So it's very much more relevant to us now than it was then, I guess. So the biggest concern with corporations they have at the moment is that people are accessing corporate data, but once they access it, they don't have visibility on what's happening to that data, where it's been stored, who is it being shared with, and how is the data being used. So that is the concern, and then again, that is the opportunity that we also have to give the customer that visibility by using our product. So Prootpoint Insider Threat Management now is a part of our information protection platform, which includes Zero Trust Network Access, the Web Gateway, CASB, and DLP solution across email, Web Gateway, and also on desktop. So the ITM component works hand in hand with our DLP component in the desktop at the moment. So from an ITM perspective, we do follow the same process similar to all the other products that we do at Prootpoint, which is mainly focusing around people and people-centric security. So what we do here is we tend to monitor the people who's using the data and accessing the data instead of the data itself for moving from location A to B. The Prootpoint has classified people who are of concern internally as 3 different categories of users. So these users are a compromised user, where simply their account's been taken out and someone's using their credentials to log into the corporate. The second area of this focus is a negligent user who really doesn't follow the corporate rules on what and how to use corporate data and how to keep it secure. And the last piece is where we look at a malicious user, where he intentionally misuses that information for monetary gain or for other reasons. So I'll pass it on to Matt. I'll take us through in more details about this and how we have visibility into our insider threat. Matt, over to you, mate.
Awesome, thanks, Maresh. As both Dan and Maresh said, I'm Matt Patterson. So I'm here at Prootpoint as part of what we call the Advanced Technologies Group. I get to play with all the cool emerging technology that we've either acquired, built, or are about to acquire. Fingers crossed, because hopefully there's some new stuff coming. But my role here is really that sort of that technical overlay to the core team. So we have some space or a deal where
Sorry, Matt, did we lose you?
Sorry, I think my headset decided it was going to die, so we're going to put that aside and use the laptop. So yeah, as I was saying, so where we need some additional coverage, some deeper experience in the technologies and even say the market that we're addressing, that's sort of where I come into play. My background is very much around the web, CASB, and sort of access and DLP sort of space. So it's a logical fit for me here at Prootpoint. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is our insider threat capability. This really is very much a part of, I guess, the building blocks for how we address DLP as an issue or as a problem for our customers, and then how we can look to address that sort of thing. Maresh touched on it already, it being a very people-centric view of how we handle this sort of thing, and you know, same goes for anything that we do at Prootpoint, where we look at the security around the people, what the individuals inside the organization are doing, and then how can some security be built around that, rather than bolting on new bits of technology around sort of making stuff secure. If we can be aware of how it's being handled and what the behavior of the individual is, then we can address the security in a much more thorough and a much more effective way for our customers. And again, as Maresh said, we kind of look at this from an insider threat and even a DLP perspective, really, around 3 types of users: a negligent user, a compromised user, and a malicious user. The negligent user is someone who doesn't necessarily understand the policy. They're going to send some data home, to work on it because it's late at night. They're, put something on a USB key so they can move it around. They don't necessarily understand that by doing so is or carries a degree of risk to the data and to the organization. They're just trying to get their job done. Compromised user Actually, I quite like the image there. It's someone who's basically they've lost their account and is now in control of someone else. So it could be those steps leading up to the compromise that we can have a degree of visibility of, and then those actions that have happened post-compromise to see when there's some data access or something like that. So give show the picture of what that access risk looks like. And then finally, there's a malicious user. This person is getting data outside of the organization from hell or high water. They will do everything they possibly can to be able to get this little bit of data and move it outside. So be it downloading some sensitive information, then trying to encrypt it or put it onto just flat out put on the USB key, or rename it and email it to themselves, or try and use these other methods to be able to get around what might be the security gateways that they have to pass. Being able to identify that behavior is really important. So being able to know the difference between someone who probably just needs a slap on the wrist and be sent to read some more of the company policies versus someone who's going to get a letter from HR and be escorted from the building. Because those reactions are different for the reason of the context that you have behind capturing that. Where we start this conversation is very much around how the nature of the workplace has changed. So we're looking at short-term casual workers, links for supply chain side, data existing in the cloud now, communication networks are changing, everyone's working from home, the whole process around how we go about our day-to-day has changed. So how we have to then protect our data and create the security around our users has changed as well. We need to be able to adapt to that. The whole concept of people being the perimeter is probably more true now than it ever has been in the past. It's certainly been a conversation that we as vendors and you as security people have been having for quite some time. But the last couple of years of COVID have really taught us that we need to make sure our people know what they're doing, make sure that they're handling this data properly, and being able to identify when it's being mishandled. The point where our employers are talking to suppliers or partners, we've got contractors, we've got customers, we've got all these different areas all over the place, and we need to create the visibility and the control across these different avenues to the data, the keys to the kingdom, however you want to put it. Make sure that we're capturing that behavior and capturing that context in the process of creating the security around it as well. So insider threat is not necessarily something that's new. The market came to life quite a few years ago in various sort of forms, but the visibility of how this impacts organizations now is becoming much more prominent. Again, this move to remote working, the change in the landscape means that we're becoming much more aware of what this looks like. Verizon showed us that 30% of all breaches are going to involve some sort of threat actor that's sitting internally to the organization in some way. Now that does actually have some nuances to what that insider actually looked like. It's a little bit over 60% there are careless users, and that's the person emailing something to themselves or putting on a USB key and losing it or something along those lines. 23% of that, nearly a quarter of those people are malicious users. They are taking the data and they have the data and they're going to take it with them wherever it is that they're going. They could have just handed in their notice. They could be, call it corporate conspiracy or something like that. So someone's trying to take the data to a competitor or something like that. And then you've got about 14% roughly that are sitting in that compromised space where their account's been attacked. They have handed over their credentials in some way, shape or form, and now it's not that person accessing the data, it's an attacker. Ponemon, I mean, those stats have come out of Ponemon there. They also showed us that the average annual cost for an insider is about $11 million. And the time to try to resolve an incident because of an insider is somewhere about that 77 days. So this landscape or this threat to the data and to what is valuable inside of the organization has a significant monetary value, but also time to resolve. That's 77 days is a significant part of a year. where your teams are going to be wrapped up in trying to resolve what's going on. There are many security approaches, products, processes, everything like that that's existed for quite some time around how to deal with these sort of attacks and all these this threat that exists by way of an insider. The difficulty with all of them is that either they don't fully address the issue individually, and to be honest, when you bolt them all together, they don't necessarily together resolve what the problem is when it really comes down to it, or they require a lot of hand-holding, a lot of time to on the operational side of things to really both implement and then maintain from an operational standpoint. So how are we approaching it differently at Prootpoint? We've looked at, as I said, the people-centric approach to this insider threat. We look at the context of the user and the risk that this presents to maintaining the organizational status quo. We look at the detection, the analytics of how to capture these events that are going to lead us to that point in time where we can identify who the insider is and what that threat is, and then we bring that down into a workflow so that we can take it from that point of monitoring to detection to then being able to identify exactly what the root cause is, which bucket we're going to put that insider into, and then what the end result is for resolution. Really being able to assist an organization being able to put all that together. It's, as Marash said, come to us via acquisition of Observit back in 2019, but it's arguably one of the most proficient platforms at the time that we brought on, but it is purpose-built for both this monitoring, detection, and then onward resolution for the insider threat. It exists as a lightweight, virtually invisible agent that sits on the endpoint to be able to monitor the activities, give the context, bring forward what the situation, the events are that deal to bring you to the compromise point. We can deploy it in both an on-prem or a SAAS-based deployment model as well. We'll focus on the SAAS-based one today. And again, it's built around the privacy, compliance, and the security for the organization. You want to maintain a degree of privacy of the data that you're capturing. There's compliance issues around this sort of thing. Most of any customer that we're dealing with has some degree of compliance requirement, be it as simple as adhering to privacy, then all the way through to sort of government level organizational type security that needs to be wrapped around that as well. And then finally, scalability, particularly in the SAAS sense, the platform is built to scale. So you can on-ramp as many users as you want. We can ingest as much data as is needed to be able to supply both the monitoring and then the outcomes that the customer are after on the other side. And not to harp on the point, but it really is the case of how we look at it here is that the management of that insider and the threat to the organization needs to be people-centric. You need to have that context of the individual to be able to address what exactly is relevant in terms of the what has been detected, and then also the onward reaction and remediation of that. I'll build this out sort of slowly as I'm talking, but effectively what we're doing here is recording the events that are occurring on the endpoint. It could be as simple as just someone opening an application. It can be being able to sort of capture all of the metadata, even some screen recording around what is happening there, to be able to see when someone has opened a tab in a browser, has gone to, in this case, Salesforce and logged in. They're logging onto the company tenancy, they're accessing some data, and then beyond that, opening up Explorer to then capture the capture that download that they've made, rename it to something that they might then move somewhere else, and then in this case put it into a Dropbox sync folder. At that point in time, most call it a DLP solution at this point is going to capture maybe that that move to a cloud sync folder, or the the capture of an event. But in this case, that DLP solution is really only going to see a JPEG file be dropped onto a cloud sync and probably ignore it for the most part. The important aspect that we have here is that we're capturing that trail of behavior that's led up to it. They've gone onto the company's site, they've downloaded what is known sensitive data, and then are now looking to exfiltrate that by way of just quite simply obfuscating the file name and moving it somewhere else. So this leads me to talk a little bit more about, I guess, the sort of the spectrum of what we're going to be capturing here. So the data exfiltration side is just one part. Most solutions are going to be able to see things like USB connected devices, capturing events like cloud sync and those sort of things there. But the context around how we're capturing this data exfiltration event and what is leading up to it is what is going to lead us to be able to make a firm decision on which bucket and how a user ends up in and how we deal with it. We can look around what might be careless behavior as well. Look for someone who's accessing or mishandling data in some sort of way. Looking at where they might be doing remote assistance or something like that's going to sort of give a picture of some behavior that might have some outside influence. And even say unauthorized access, so someone trying to access internal systems or a CRM site or anything like that is outside of the boundaries of what their day-to-day is and what it's supposed to be at that time. We then we focus this around, or at least how we've built out what we call our threat library, and building on this spectrum as well. We're looking at the events that we're monitoring for, and then what kind of hit rate we're getting on these sort of things. So what we call the top 20 in 2020 is really a good picture here of the kind of activity that we're able to focus on and really bring to light in this insider threat context. I mean, exfiltrating tracked files to web, that's a lot of data being, a lot of alerts and that sort of thing being pushed out for someone trying to upload things into the cloud. Varying degrees of context to that. Some of it could be legitimate, but a tracked file for us is, that context means that we've actually tracked that down from tracked that from a trusted location and then moving it into an untrusted location. There's things with malicious extensions. There's clear text passwords, all that sort of thing is in there. Even hacking and spoofing tools partway down that list as well. There's a lot of activity here that people started to really sort of trickle into from call it an unsupervised location now that they're working from home. And bring into that light, I guess, the contextual, and you'll see a bit more of this interface in a minute when we go through the demo side of things. You'll even see a couple of these events, but the contextual evidence we can apply here is really important as well. So the copying of the corporate data onto USB key is one thing, but being able to capture that with evidence around having a screenshot, being able to capture the metadata around that event, and even drill right down into the whole detail of exactly what was captured at that moment. And then I'll show you a little bit later on around how we lead up to that as well, being able to capture multiple alerts across multiple systems. All of this context is very important to, again, being able to make that decision between a slap on a wrist and send to some training versus an HR letter and being escorted from the building. So again, here at Prootpoint, protection starts with people. It's very much about being able to monitor the individuals, make sure that you have that context, and making sure that the security is built around the context of what is occurring inside the organization. We focus on on that people side of things to make sure that that the context we're applying to those events is important and applying that in an operational sense on the other side. And just because logo slides are good, there's a few big names on there that you should recognise, and these are all insider threat customers for us. And there's even a few logos that we are not allowed to put on that list that are strong customers from our side as well. So that's really the overview side of things. What I'm going to give you now is we're going to step into a little bit of architecture. I'll show you a little bit about what the platform looks like, how it kind of stitches together. And then on the back of the architecture side, we'll go into a quick demo, quick time check. We've got plenty of time for all of that, and we can keep going. So the platform itself, we're focusing on the SaaS-based solution at the moment. So large, scalable cloud-based infrastructure, which will take event streams from an endpoint, really, regardless of where it is. If it's got an upstream channel to the internet, it's port 443, the metadata pipes, and it then lands into the platform to be able to then be processed. That endpoint can be nearly anything you want, and it can be nearly anywhere you want from a desktop, laptop perspective. Caveat there, mobile devices are a little bit out of scope at the moment, but from an endpoint perspective, it doesn't matter really where it sits from a location perspective. The events are going to run upstream. Even in a case of a device that's offline, it'll cache until it has another internet connection, and then those events will go upstream as well. So you're never short of having the evidence and the capture on the other side. From an integration perspective as well, while the platform will ingest all the events from the endpoint, we can also then pipe that out to other areas. So if you have or in a position where you have SOAR platforms or other degrees of automation, even something like ServiceNow and an incident ticketing system, we can generate a webhook outbound via API into ServiceNow to create an incident ticket based on certain alerts. If one needs more immediate attention and you have an incident workflow inside an organization that it will ingest an incident ticket, say off ServiceNow or something like that, we can spit a webhook out that will trigger that first event, and it will happen as it happens. Instead of having someone from a service desk having to process an inbound event and push it all through, the workflows can be triggered nearly immediately. Webhook side of things means that we also have the flexibility to be able to push alerts into other communication and collaboration platforms. We have direct Slack channel and Teams channel integrations. Honestly, if you know what the configuration is for your inbound webhook headers, it can be customized even to push that notification in. And then even something as simple as just an email notification can also be triggered from the platform. There's JSON data exports as well. You can go through storage cycles of hot and cold storage. Events can be pushed off into cold storage to reserve space, or even for regulatory reasons have events sitting on the side. Those events can be stored in an S3 bucket and even just pushed off to Glacier afterwards to roll through that data lifecycle as well. From a storage and control through what we call a realm, the endpoint agents will push their data upstream through a configured realm, and then that will land it in its particular destination on the other side. Looking at this slide, I realize it's a little bit old, and by old, I mean probably about a month older than it should be. We now have a Japan data center, and very soon into next year, we're going to have an Australian data center as well. So there'll be a US, EU, Japanese, and Australian realm roughly mid next year. The Japan one is already up and running. The Australian one will be roughly mid next year to bring that in. So and to say that as well, with the single portal that's marked in the middle there, it actually doesn't matter where the data is sitting. The interface even for say global customers, they can be accessing the multiple runs in the multiple areas from the one console without having to log into a number of separate portals. So with that, just really basics of the architecture from that side of things. We can step into a demo here if we're all ready. So let me just hop out of my slide pack here and drop that. I have my demo screen open in the background. Hopefully you can still see that, looks like. So I'm going to start here in the alerts dashboard. From here, this is where we look at all of the alerts that have come in. You can see a couple of different channels here. In this respect, we have endpoint events, we have some cloud events coming via CASB and email events coming via our email platform. I mean, we're Prootpoint. If it didn't have email on it, then there'd be something wrong. But with the context of the multiple channels here means that we can actually see when someone has tried to, say, move something like an encrypted zip out of the organization. We can see where we can capture some data context around content from the cloud, and even then have that reflected potentially on what's happening on the endpoint. Super simple demo system here. I have my 3 users, Alice, Bob, and Carol. Alice is my negligent user, Bob is my compromised user, and Carol is my malicious user, and probably quite obviously with a number of alerts that she's got there. We'll probably focus a little bit on Carol just from the events that we've got here. But from an alert perspective, you can see here where we can get just a quick view on sort of what's happening. We can see where Alice has grabbed some credit card information and tried to sync it to a personal share. We can see where Bob has actually accessed his personal email and clicked a phishing link. Now that's raised a critical flag on this side here. Then we can see where, following that phishing link, now we can see where we've got a download event here come via cloud. So in this case, we can see that we have some evidence that Bob needs to go to some security awareness training, which again, for Prootpoint, we do that. And we potentially in the future stop him from handing out his credentials. And thankfully here we've captured it via that block event in the cloud, but again without some sort of cloud protection, that's going to be an attacker could have free reign over that data. Finally, with Carol, she is our moving data out of the organization and nothing's going to get in her way user. You can see a number of events here where she's capturing some sensitive information, sensitive content coming from a trusted repository. We can see where she's trying to encrypt it. So she's trying to push that out by obfuscating the data there. We can even see the process that's doing that. So this is simple as putting a password on a zip file or something like that. She's now deleting it. We can capture that event as well. And then she's trying to move it around. So she's blocking the encrypted zip. So we have an alert context here. Each one of these has a certain severity attached to it, so we can see where something might be medium. Downloading some sensitive content is potentially part of Carol's job. It's a good idea to keep an eye on when that event occurs, but we don't need to, run over and pull her out of her chair just at this moment. The other events where we sort of escalate a little bit, where we can see a file download coming from cloud, that has a bit of a higher rating. Where we see an encrypted zip file via email, that has a higher rating as well. But this corporate data being exfilled to USB, this is going to have a critical alert attached to it. We know that this is one of those strong traffic light events. We need to go and definitely have a look at what's happening with Carol there. So we can have a look at a bit of the timeline behind what these events look like by capturing, by clicking on a single event, bringing up the information on the side here. You saw this context view pop up in the previous slides. We can scroll through for some information around what we see of the file. We can see this is coming down from OneDrive, and it's dropping this client social security number, and that's just going into a downloads file. We can see that she's triggered a web file download event here as well. We can even go into details and see from say common fields around what the activity, the workflow, the user looks like, but we can even go into sort of a full every field type information, where we can see even things like the groups that Carol's part of, and we dig into even more information that attaches around that. And then finally, a screenshot of what actually, sorry, not on that event, because let's go this one. We can see a screenshot of what has occurred, and thank you, demo people. It's here somewhere. This is really good. I love it when my demos work. I'll get back to that in a minute. So we can even capture a screenshot of what has happened at that point in time. From a data context perspective, that worked a minute ago. That's really frustrating. We can capture a file timeline for what has happened as well. So we can see from the alert perspective here, you know, these are the events that have flagged up for Carol. I can even find one of these and click on the file timeline to see exactly what has happened around this actual file itself. So we can see here, we've got a web file download. We can now see her go through the renaming process. So we didn't see that earlier there. So what's Carol trying to do with this file? And now she's deleting it afterwards. We can get a bit more context on this one as well by even drilling down further into the timeline. So we've got a data-centric view here called this DLP event. Now we can dig down into the actual Carol timeline and see a little bit more about what is happening. What is it that Carol's been doing before, during, and after these events, to give us a bit more context about why I know that I'm already going to go over there and tap Carol on the shoulder and hand her a letter and walk her out of the building. What are the other things that we can do here? Oh, sorry, what is the other context that we have around the events that have occurred at this point? So we have that file download. We have, we can even see that correlated from a cloud perspective as well. So we've got the share state of the file now coming from the cloud. We can see that there is now a rename event that has occurred here as well. Oh, there's my screenshots, they'll come back to me. So from a rename perspective, now we can see with a little bit of a picture behind, okay, so there's the file download, there's the rename, and we can see that destination file rename as well. It's weird. And even with the prompt to say that, you know, if you're changing the extension, so she's definitely getting a warning there. And in her downloads folder, look at that, there's a copy of WinRAR sitting there. So clearly she's doing something a bit nefarious. We can see her attach the USB key here as well. And then we have a copy to the USB event down here, and we can see that holiday pictures being shifted on the other side. As we go through some of the other things here as well, we can see that she's been accessing OneDrive, and she's even gone to her browsing history in Chrome and is looking to clear her browsing history as well. So there's definitely something nefarious going on from that standpoint. We can go back a little bit further in the timeline as well to see that there's been a few cracks at whatever it is that Carol's trying to do here. There's an email alert here where she's trying to send an encrypted zip. Now, the advantage of having a system that is integrated at this point, where we can capture not just the events that are happening on the endpoint, but also capture cloud and email events on that side as well, is that we can download a copy of the actual email itself. Oops, sorry, mouse is bouncing around. We can download a copy of the email itself to be able to have the context or a copy of that email that was captured at the gateway that shows us the block of the encrypted event. But we can also have a remediation on this as well. So we can use the integration in the platform to, okay, I've examined the email. I know it's not actually malicious or bad or anything like that, and I can release the message. I can actually send the message itself as an encrypted one, just onward send it with no action, or block it entirely. So the remediation options are there for the email. Same thing on a cloud event, where I come down here, there's a remediation action available here as well, where I can change that, say the share state of a file. It's an internally shared file at the moment. Let's just hit that button again. So, I can change that share state of the file from internal to private. I can get rid of any share permissions. I can remove the file entirely. I could delete it if I wanted to. Probably a bit drastic, but it can be done. Or even quarantine the file off to another area. And then the other aspect of being able to capture events from the cloud side here as well is being able to see what the content is. So we've got DLP detections. We can see what those DLP detections actually are from a snippet perspective. So back to Carol's timeline, she's definitely had a few things, that she's happening that are going on here. If we go back even further, we can see that WinRAR event where she's archiving something with a password. We can even get the screenshot of what has been or what she's been doing there. And obviously she's had a couple of goes at that because now she's deleting the file. She's hopped into Outlook, created a message, and then tried to and then attempted to attach it to the message there, again being blocked at the gateway. So the context again now gives us that view or that opportunity to really have a look back in the history of Carol here to see that she's definitely sitting in that malicious user bucket. She's tried many times to move this little bit of information outside of the organization, and she is destined for an HR blacklist, as opposed to someone like Alice down here, who again we can see some of the web sync and the file download alerts, but again from Alice's perspective, she's capturing the file. She's not even renamed it or anything beyond just saying that it's being worked on here. And then we can hop into her timeline and have a bit more of that context around what it is that Alice is doing. Same sort of timeline view. We can see that that we're now looking at Alice and capturing the events that are around this. And we've got these events for download out of SharePoint, again capturing the cloud information, and then that sync up to the cloud, to her Dropbox folder there as well. Now, what I'm looking for here is a very specific event. So we have an actual web browsing event here in the middle. Now, this is where we can capture some of that context. For here, she's just emailing her boss to say the deadline's a killer, it's 10 p.m. She's now just going to work on this from home. So the context of this event here allows us to give us that view on exactly what it was that Alice was doing with that data. Not to say that it's good, but we now know that she's not Carol. She's not trying to move it out of the organization in some sort of malicious fashion. She is just trying to get her job done. And she needs to have a little bit more training about how that's supposed to and how that should occur. And then the final one here, I mean, the phishing links being clicked and that sort of thing are pretty obvious from even from an alert standpoint. You can tell the story of Bob without drilling too far into his timeline. But that ability to, again, just being able to capture the event, look at what the context of that was. We can hop straight into Bob's timeline here to get a bit more of a picture around this. But the context here again is being able to see that there was a phishing link click, being able to see that there was a compromise for Bob. And here we go. We've got the view of the screenshot there. It's a relatively convincing looking Microsoft phish, and then it leads on the other side to the file being blocked. Again, we can see the sensitive information that's in there and that block event from cloud. And then we can also see that there is the share state of that file has now changed as well. So we can see it being externally shared. So someone is definitely after that file. And from a remediation standpoint, we can now capture this event. CASB can apply this automatically, or from an incident responder perspective, you can make this a manual action as part of the process. But ultimately, that's been shared externally inappropriately. This can now be pulled back to an internal only share, remove any external domains from it, or even make it private or quarantine it while the investigation happens on the other side of it. And again, as simple as just selecting an option and hitting submit, and that action is pushed back onto the cloud side. So with that, only a couple of minutes left. From a demo side before we hop into the Kahoot and some questions. But what I thought I might show you on the other side of this is it's all well and good to have the alerts and have this view and I guess what I'm talking about, having the context around it. But there needs to be some sort of framework, something to build from. So what we have here in the platform itself is what we call our threat library. Now, this is about 156 rules of what we see as those, beyond that to the top 20 of 2020, beyond those basic rules, being able to give you a framework to build your policy on. The events that we're looking for are tagged from a category perspective. So something could be as simple as a time fraud, looking at social media sites, or even hopping on a job site, although I'm not entirely sure that's a time fraud as a job fraud, but that, or you're looking for something else to do. But these can go far beyond that as well. So we can look at DBA activity, we can look for bypassing security controls. There's a whole load of these data exfiltration and DLP events. And you can select these from a tag perspective to then be able to drill down and utilize these to then create the rule base or the library that you are looking for specifically. None of these are turned on by default. You want to select these in the context that is going to be valuable for your organization. But it is as simple as finding the rule that you want, like this Bluetooth file transfer. Bluetooth file transfer. You can have a look at if this rule has any context of the events that have occurred across the organization in 24 hours, 8 hours up to 7 days. It gives you a bit of a view of what exactly the rule entails, but you can then click the Save As rule. This will take this baseline object here and give you the opportunity now to save this as a rule inside your system. So you can now customize your alert sensitivity, your alert risk level. You can add a notification to it as well if you want to have this trigger one of the webhooks or an email notification or anything like that. You can even change the context as well. So if you want to have a look at this activity based not just on what is opening just for the raw events for a Bluetooth file transfer, but you can also look at this in context of only certain machines or only certain users or only certain groups inside the organization. And even from that group standpoint, when we're looking at something like a data exfiltration event, if you want to have sort of very generalized policy of moving sensitive data around that would apply to everyone, but apply a more stringent or closed lens on those people who are potentially under investigation or have just handed in their resignation, or their manager thinks they're about to hand in their resignation, you can have a rule set that would apply to those individuals to be able to put a little bit more of a magnifying glass on them, track a little bit more beyond just sensitive information, and just look for them for moving something larger than 100 meg file. Look for them to sending excessive numbers of print jobs. Look for them accessing, sort of more generically, accessing any sort of cloud sync folder or cloud sync service, the use of personal email. All those sort of things can then be tracked as an onward event for someone who is under, like I said, a little bit more of a magnifying glass in that point. So that's a quick overview of the system, give you a bit of a picture of the events that are there, give you a bit of a picture of how we build out that threat library to start with. I'm going to stop sharing now and hand it over for the Kahoot.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. Awesome. So just in preparation before we kickstart this Kahoot, please make sure that you type in kahoot.it if you don't have the app, but if not, and you have the app, please feel free to access it now, and we'll start prepping the game code very shortly. So I just want to say also a big thank you to everyone that has stuck around. And thank you as well to those that have participated in the past 4 Prootpoint webinars. So we have the game pin here, so it is 2890944. And I'll give you all a couple more seconds just so that we can grab more players. And once again, we are giving away some prizes. So it is for those that come first, second, and third. So we're giving away some Prootpoint merch packs, and also everyone is technically a winner for this webinar, because you will receive a $25 BWS gift card for everyone that has attended. And also just a little side note, there are going to be 10 questions. I am going to have one general knowledge question just to warm you all up. And there are a lot more trickier questions this time around with multiple answers. So there will be double points for the trickier ones that will be in the mix. So thank you everyone for joining. So we've got 12 people in. I'll just give everyone about 5 more seconds and then we'll kickstart.
Dorothy, all the tricky questions will depend on how keenly they've been listening to Matt's presentation. I think we touched on answers for almost all the questions there.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, hopefully they weren't too distracted from the BWS gift card. So hopefully you're all listening. And before I click start, just for those that haven't played Kahoot, it is a game of speed. So even if you get the questions wrong, you do get points for answering them quite quickly. All right, good luck everyone, and let's kick start. Okay, question 1, what is the third sign of the zodiac? Is it Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, or Gemini? So we've got 5 seconds left. Wow, okay, so we've got 4 people that are very into the zodiac signs. So well done, the answer is Gemini. So well done to DK, Angela, and Sparrow. So next question, which is more relevant. So multi-select and double points. So Prootpoint, people-centric insider threat management includes, is it context-based user risk management, insider threat detection and analytics, incident response workflow, or privileged access management?
And this question has got multiple answers, yes?
Yes. And bonus points too.
You know the answer to that, Marash. This is your question.
Green is not my color.
All right, and the answer is, so we've got red, blue, and orange. So well done to those that got that correct. Okay, so we've kind of shifted the scoreboard. So well done to RC, Angela, and Baz. Next question. What are the 3 types of users we monitor for with ITM? Is it vulnerable people, attacked people, privileged people, inside user, third-party user, attacker, negligent user, compromised user, malicious user, or contractors, visitors, or suppliers? So I've got 10 seconds left. And the answer is negligent user, compromised user, malicious user. So well done to the 5 that got that one correct.
That was a trick question too, because the vulnerable people, attacked people, and privileged people are part of our people-centric approach, not quite ITM. But
yeah, so well done, RC, Angela, and Jed. So question 4. What is the cost of insider threat according to, is it Ponemon? We've got 1 million, which is 5 days, $11 million, 77 days, 50 million, 6 months, or 100 million, equivalent to a year. These 10 participants are very quick. I feel like it's always, it must be the same 10. Hopefully you're not clicking on just one color every time. Awesome. Okay, majority got that one right. Maybe it was an easy question. So, yep, the answer is 11 million, 77 days. Well done, RC, Jed, and Angela. Okay, next question. Question 5. What is a bad example of an insider threat? User uploads their OneNote file to Dropbox after giving notice. User emails a customer document to their Gmail to continue working at home. user finds sensitive data in shared folder and deletes it without reporting, or user clicks on phishing link and enters credentials into a malicious site. I've got 3 seconds. Well done to the 6 that got that right.
You've been listening.
Yes. Well done, RC. And well done to Baz and Judd. Next question, 6 out of 10. So true or false, Prootpoint ITM platform is available via SaaS and on-prem.
Geez, that
I
was
think we're just
fast.
waiting for, yeah, we're waiting just for one response. Let's go, we've got some confident people. Okay, well done to the 11 that got that right, so it is true. Okay, awesome, so we've got the scoreboard that's unchanged, so well done to the 3 of you. So question 7, what types of activities can be prevented or blocked by Prootpoint ITM? USB transfers and personal cloud sync, web uploads and personal email, Bluetooth transfers to a mobile, or none of the above? We've got 8 seconds on the clock. And the answer is red, so USB transfers and personal cloud sync. So well done to the 4 that got that right. Wow, RC, you're on fire. You haven't moved. So well done, and well done to Angela and Baz. Okay, so question 8. Where is the control not applied for the agent taking screen captures? Is it realm configuration, endpoint policy, rule, or all of the above?
This
Tough
would be a good
question
one.
there, Matt.
The demo.
It's a bit slower this time. And the answer is rule. So well done to the 2 of you that got that right.
We'll forgive you for getting that wrong too, because we didn't cover that.
Well, it hasn't changed, so okay, well done to everyone. Okay, question 9, multi-select, and also we've got double points. So what differentiates Prootpoint information protection products? Accelerated incident response, solution cost savings, time saved, or risk reduction, or and risk reduction? So now just waiting on, I believe, one more person. That was a tricky one because it was everything. So we've still got RC up the top, so well done, and well done to Baz and Jed. And the last question, a multi-select and also a double points. So Prootpoint Enterprise DLP combines the power of select all that apply. Is it email gateway, email DLP, cloud application, security broker, or endpoint DLP / insider threat management? Okay, so I guess the 8 didn't get it right, but majority of you got that one right, so well done. And let's congratulate our winners. So 3rd place, we've got RC. That's so hard to believe. Well done, RC. Well done to J.O. And we have 1st place, Simon. Well done to the 3 of you. We will keep in touch with you after the webinar, so please feel free to put in a comment in the chat section so that I can track down your real names. I'm sure RC and J.O aren't. And I'll hand this one over back to, I believe this one will go back to Matt if you've got a slide for the ending.
You do. Here we go. Actually, no, not really. It's just sort of the wrap up questions and that sort of thing. So we can do that. If that's the right one. Yeah. So it's really just sort of the thank you and if you've got any questions, even if it's a question based on the quiz, we can answer those as well.
Yes, and if there's any question which came in through our Q&A, we'll get back to you with answers via email as we usually do. If there's anything else, please reach out to Dan Vickers, the Ingram Micro team, or Matt or myself for any information. Thanks, guys, again. Enjoy the time off and enjoy the holiday season. I'll talk to you all soon. Take care. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.